Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nara and here we're discussing all things astrology, spirituality, and mysticism, but particularly astrology. And this video is about Gemini, Sun, Rising, or Mercury in the first. So if you happen to have Gemini, Sun, or Rising sign, or just want to learn a little bit more about the zodiac sign of Gemini, then welcome to this video. So, like I always do, I like to get into the planet first and then interpret the zodiac sign from a perspective of that planet and then applying it to the first house. Okay, so what is Mercury? We know that Geminis and Virgos are ruled by the same planet, which is Mercury. And Mercury is our intellect, it's our mind, it's the assumptions that we make of situations, of the conversations, the perceptions, the thinking process that we have, the attitudes in different areas of our lives, and our ability to learn. So this is Mercury. But the way Mercury manifests in Virgo and Gemini is very different, because we know Geminis and Virgos are different, even though they are ruled by the same planet, right? So, so Virgo got an aspect of a Mercury which is very sharp, intellectual, detail-oriented, and with a good memory. And Virgos are usually interested in a few things, to learn a few things, and then apply them practically to benefit from the skills that they acquired. But when it comes to Gemini and how Mercury manifests in the sign of Gemini is different. It manifests as a curious mind, manifests as a very mutable mind, meaning that it can adjust opinions and perceptions literally based on the environment. They're in constant flow. They're constantly changing their thinking. They're constantly changing their perceptions. And they're very, very smart people. And they disperse their intellect, unlike Virgo. Virgo only is interested intellectually in a few things, but when it comes to Gemini, Geminis are interested in like 100 things at the same freaking time, and they get bored very, very easily. So they learn a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and then they are able, because Gemini, you know, that Mercury aspect in Gemini allows them to connect everything and create a meaning of life. Create a meaning of this earth. Okay, so they learn everything here and there, and then they're able to construct a full picture from whatever they learn. So they're very different. Like the way Mercury affects Gemini and Virgo is very, very different. Okay, so I like to talk a little bit about Greek mythology, the gods, Greek gods mythology. In astrology, we use that because I feel like those myths, if we interpret them, we can actually apply them in our lives and understand a lot of things. So Mercury is a very curious planet, like naturally. And based on the mythology, Mercury was a god that did not have its own personality really, in terms of like its own thinking, but rather would just gather bits and pieces of beliefs from other 12 gods and construct a thinking process or the perception or the belief system for itself so that they are able to live. And then when Mercury was born, I don't know why my camera is moving, but also when Mercury was born, Mercury didn't want to stay in its cradle. Mercury wanted to escape because it was so boring for Mercury to stay in one spot. It wanted to move literally since childhood, since like early years. And basically, Mercury abandoned the cradle and went its own way because it was bored. Now it makes sense why Geminis get bored easily, right? So I like to look at the mythical stories about the planets because it allows us to understand people with those zodiac signs better. Mercury, planet Mercury, is very, very, very intellectual. And when it comes to Gemini, Geminis are very curious. They have a very, very sharp intellect. They're extremely smart. They can learn fast. These people, like Gemini placement people who have like either sun rising or, you know, the prominent house in Gemini where you have like conjunction planets there, which aspect a lot of other houses. If you have a very prominent placement of Gemini, you will have like very, very sharp abilities when it comes to your mind. You grasp things so fast like nobody does. Your mind works 10 times faster than the other people does, than other people's. And that's the beauty of Gemini. And because their mind works so fast, they get bored easily. You know, they constantly need to change their communication style or the topic of the conversation, and they will be constantly jumping from topic to topic with other people. And, you know, if other people don't go into another topic and start discussing, Geminis go and find other set of people who can resonate with this sharpness of mind. And they usually do, because it's a mutable sign. Just like Pisces and Sagittarius, excuse me. But the mutability of Gemini is being manifested more so in the intellect and the perception and attitudes. So Geminis are perceived as two-faced and they're perceived as liars, but that's not necessarily the truth. It is the truth, but the reason behind it is kind of makes sense, okay? So for instance, the mutability of Gemini allows it to adjust the opinions, perceptions, thought processes, and attitudes based on the environment. So they're in constant flow. So based on the environment they're in, they will adjust their thinking to that environment, or based on the person they're presented with, they will adjust their thinking. So let's say, for instance, you are connecting with a person and he voices or she voices her opinion about something, and you as a Gemini, your mutability allows you to understand that person's perspective, and as a result they change your mind and you start to believe this way as well sometimes. And then the next day you meet another person who thinks of the same issue but differently, who has a different opinion about the same issue. You just spoke with a different person, right? And they have a different opinion of that, and Gemini would adopt that opinion as well. So just based on who they're talking with. So if you provide, you know, enough justification, and usually when it comes to Gemini, they adjust their opinion to people who sound very smart. They tend to like teachers who are smart. And the natural house of Gemini is the third house, which is the communication on a very mundane level. So Geminis can get along with anybody. Geminis get along with anybody because the third house is our basic communication on a mundane level with our neighbors, with our siblings, with our parents, with just people on a very mundane communication level. Like, hey, how are you? How's the weather? You know, like everybody can relate to that. Unlike Aquarius, which nobody gets. Nobody understands Aquarius because of that Uranus energy to stand out in thinking. And another aspect of it is the fixed sign. The fixed mode of the sign doesn't allow Aquarius to adjust its thinking based on environment, but rather stand out in that environment and think differently. When it comes to Gemini, it's a mutable sign. They're both air signs, but their communication style is very different. And that mutability of Gemini makes it very, very adjustable in thinking based on who they're talking to. And if you're smart and if you sound smart and you talk to a Gemini, they are more likely to take your thinking and agree with it and take it as its own until they meet another smart person who sounds more appealing, and then they will change that initial thought. So Geminis are not liars. They're not. They're just minds get bored, and they just, mutability of the sign makes it very, very, it changes constantly in its intellect. It has to, because that's what stimulates them the most. That's what they're interested in. Another difference I want to say about Geminis and Aquarius and Libra, because all of these three signs are related to the air sign, right? The air element. And for example, Libra talks based on the reactions, based on the internal feeling. So Libra engages in conversations based on the internal feeling she has. Oh, do I like this person? If I like him or her, then I go and talk to them. But if I don't, because Venus allows her to feel the preferences, right? What I like and what I dislike. If there is no attraction to a person in some shape or form, then Libra won't communicate. But when it comes to Aquarians, like I said, fixed signs, think by themselves, right? They do not go with the current, and they will just be insisting on their beliefs until they find somebody who, is like-minded. When it comes to Gemini, the way they communicate on a very mundane level. They can change their thinking easily based on environment, and that allows a Gemini to adjust their behavior and their thinking, based on who they're dealing with, and also, which creates that friendly environment, and, and makes Gemini easier to connect with everybody and anybody, unlike, Aquarius or even Libra. So that's that about the Gemini, Mercury aspect of it. They're also Gemini people, they are good with languages. They are good at learning languages, different languages. They're very sharp, they're very fast. They always need to keep going in their intellect. They always need to expand their awareness. They like to talk to other people so that they expand their consciousness. And that's one cool thing about Gemini. But what about the first house? So if you're a Gemini rising, or happen to have a Mercury in the first house, so how it might affect your personality, because the first house rising is our personality, our approach to life, our tendencies, our patterns, the things that we are drawn to, the way we present ourselves, the way other people see us, perceive us, and relate to us is based on the first house. So if you happen to have Gemini or Mercury in the first, we can interpret it in, there's a lot of things. So first of all, appearance-wise, these people tend to have very, very profound arms. So they tend to have long arms. They tend to be very friendly looking, and they're very fast. The way they walk is very fast. They don't stand or walk slow. They walk fast. They want things to happen for them fast too. They are actually sometimes are very impatient with themselves. I would add that. And they constantly need to be in contact with other people. So sometimes Gemini first house people, they know sometimes that they gotta be doing different things. They gotta be either doing their homework or working on something else, or discipline in another area of life, but they can't just help but go out and socialize. So that can happen too with Geminis in the first. Geminis also in the first, it might affect your childhood in a way where your childhood, the early life was very unpredictable. You either changed houses frequently, or your parents moved a lot or separate. There was constant change in environment for people who have rising in Gemini. And the reason why it was happening is because, you're ruled by Mercury, and the environment had to shake things up for you to change your thinking, because the Mercury constantly makes Gemini hungry for new thought process, unlike Aquarius, which will never change their thought process unless they want it themselves. They will never change the thought process because of other people, because of what other people are saying. Gemini actually thrives on this. That's their purpose, to connect with everybody and anybody and change their minds and make their own sense of this world, connect all the aspects of their lives, all the perceptions together, and just create a meaning of the world, the world they live in, right? Unlike Aquarius. So people with Gemini in the first, or Mercury in the first, the early childhood probably was very unpredictable, where the environment was very unpredictable for that child. And the reason is because Mercury really creates that feeling inside of you to change attitudes when it comes to like the way you see the world. And that's why, it might have affected you in your childhood this way. So let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear your stories about childhood, or just in general how the Gemini or Mercury in the first is playing out in your life. But Mercury is very mutable. Mercury is very it's changing a lot, in its thinking. And, the way Mercury will affect you, let's say if you have Mercury in the first, but not in Gemini, let's say you have Mercury in the Aries or Leo or Sag, and you happen to have Mars there. So that would, and Mercury, okay, like in conjunction with Mars, for instance, that might mean that you would be like very aggressive in the way you behave and in the way you voice your opinions, very blunt. If you have the Earth, let's say the Capricorn in the first house with Mercury, or Virgo with Mercury, or Taurus with Mercury, then we would interpret it this way. So Mercury is very fast planet, right? Intellectual planet. But when it's in the Earth sign, it doesn't take action as fast as the air signs would, or fire signs would, because it would weigh out options first. The Earth sign, the Mercury in the Earth in the first house, would weigh out options, would create a list, strategize, and only then take action, right? So it will be like Mercury in the first house, depending on the element of the first house you have of the zodiac sign, will determine how that Mercury will be playing out in your life. When it's in the water sign, for instance, let's say you're a Scorpio or Pisces rising and you happen to have Mercury in the first house, then you'll be very attuned to other people's perceptions and intuitively feel what other people believe in, what other people think of, and stuff like that. So my Mercury is in the 10th house of midheaven in Cancer. And in emotional sign, it aspects Neptune. Actually, it's in 180 degrees, the opposition. And it makes me fluctuate between my own thinking and other people's thinking, okay? So for instance, like I feel the vibrations of other people intuitively, what they believe in. And if I'm not careful, I might take their thinking for my own and then act from their beliefs, and then only to find myself unhappy. So I always need to be careful, because it's the opposition, right? Because I feel other people's vibrations, but I gotta guard my own mind and think my own way, right? Because if we agree with everybody and do the same thing, approach the life as other people, it's not gonna work for us, right? We gotta create our own path. I truly believe this. And with Mercury aspecting, for instance, Neptune, or Mercury being in the water signs, you might be very intuitive in the way other people perceive you, or what the social trends. what's going on, and you got to be careful so that you do not confuse their thinking with your own, because it can happen with water Mercury. Okay, because I'm a water Mercury. I'm not a rising, but it's in my 10th house, and it's very, very, very prominent. So if I'm not careful, if I'm not conscious or aware enough, then I might confuse people's thinking for my own, just because I feel other people, you know. So that's that. But Mercury in the air in the first house, even if you have, let's say, Libra in the first with Mercury, then these people tend to perceive the world very objectively, more objectively than others, which is good. And they see the bigger picture, unlike fire sign or Tauruses, like earth signs. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We've covered everything. So please let me know if that resonates with you. If it does, please leave your comments down below. I would love to hear your interpretations of your particular Mercury or Gemini placements. I will release more videos about Gemini or Mercury through other houses. But yeah, I hope you like this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Love y'all. Bye.